Track number 5 is titled Static Sound. Let's play it.
In crime news tonight, a Greene County drug investigation lands 2 people in jail. On Wednesday morning, police served a search warrant at a home located at...
This track opens with a nostalgic synth progression with a clip from a news story about a drug bust. The location of the home raided is cut from the audio, leaving the listener to wonder what it is a reference to. Unfortunately, C-5-Air never elaborates on this audio.
Turn on the magic, not homesick, but I feel trapsick. Gas dry like Lipsky chapstick. Keep money coming in automatic. Drop it all on beats like Shroot. Now I gotta sell sounds to you. Got the brown cooking up Frank glue. Brand new and stick like glue.
C-5-Air tells us that he is currently turned on the magic, meaning that he is hopped up on drugs. A change from track 3 where he was no longer using drugs. The writing in this album demonstrates C-5-Air's lack of self-control when it comes to his substance abuse, as he's shifting from being clean to using again within just 2 tracks. He proceeds by rapping that he is not homesick, but that he is trap-sick. C-5-Air is now making it clear that he has moved out of his brother's trap house in Evansville and back into Linton. He is trap-sick, meaning that he feels homesick towards the trap house and wants to go back. After this line, C-5-Air creates another line with a double meaning, saying his gas is dry like lips, so he needs trapstick. This could mean that his stash is running dry and he's running out of marijuana, or that his product is very dry and harsh on the lungs. As dry as lips in need of moisturizing chapstick. He tells us that he keeps money coming in automatically, meaning that his money flow is so consistent you would think a machine is automatically depositing it into his account. Just like track 1, when C-5-Air tells us that he will blow it all until he hits 0, he tells us that he will drop it all on beats, like Shroot. This is a reference to Dwight Schrute, a character from The Office who owns a beat farm. In this context, C-5-Air means that he will be giving all of his money to his producer in return for beats or instrumentals. Now that C-5-Air has spent all of his money on beats and instrumentals to rap on, he must sell his sound to you, pushing the idea that he is so desperate to hit the next level in his music career. It is so important to him that he achieves this, that he's got his prod, aka producer, cooking up beats like Frank Lou, aka Frank Lucas, a notorious Harlem drug lord from the 1960s through 70s who was cooking up drugs. Meaning that his producer was working overtime to deliver a more potent product for his listeners so they will become addicted, wanting more. This can be proved by his bar, brand new, and it stick like glue. He knows the sound is unique and new, and he wants it to stick.
Let me paint a picture, little boy living in the South, wearing hand-me-downs, watching box TV, hear the static sound.
He becomes nostalgic about his early childhood, painting an image of a young boy who lives in southern Indiana wearing the clothes of his older brother. This little boy is watching a box TV, one so old that you can literally hear the static coming from the TV. He is reminiscing on the low-income upbringing, likely due to his newfound riches, remembering where he came from, a shitty box TV where you could hear the static.
He's sitting with his mama Monday afternoon, then the door unlocks, she starts to shake, and then he sees a bruise on her left, on her right, on her chest and on her thighs. He's too young to realize why his mama's fighting for her life.
He remembers that he wasn't watching TV alone. He was sitting on his mother's lap. He can recall the door unlocking and remembers feeling uneasy. He can also remember seeing bruises all over his mother's body. The bruises cover both sides of her body, meaning she was badly beaten. It becomes clear that C-5-Air is reliving a memory of his abusive father before he left. And at this point, we are reliving the memory with C-5-Air. He paints it so clearly on purpose. He wants the listener to visualize his past as if we witnessed it firsthand, offering a piece of his trauma to the audience as a gift. But not a positive gift, of course. Don't forget, we're still his audience, the enemy.
Soon the reason left, a decade passed and now I'm in the gang. Seen too many things a kid cannot unsee, it hurts the brain.
Going along chronologically through his story, C-5-Air states that his father soon left after this instance, and that he joined his first gang 10 years later. If he was 4 years old when his father left, and he joined this gang 10 years later, this puts C-5-Air at 14 years of age. We know from track 1 that C-5-Air was locked in a pen at 13, so at 14, he would have been in juvenile detention. Now we have another piece of C-5-Air's story. He did not join a gang on the street as a result of drug dealing. He joined his gang during his time in juvenile detention. These are the individuals who seemingly shape C-5-Air's hard street edge to the caliber in which it fires. These are the people he puts his words on. He finishes his rhyme scheme by saying that he has witnessed so many horrific scenes, it has permanently altered and damaged his brain. This could connect to why C-5-Air felt the need to join a gang. He felt like there was so much danger around him that he needed to surround himself by other people who knew the street code and could also protect him, especially in such a vulnerable time, being in juvenile detention at the young age of 14.
Mama's always working, always at the house alone, drinking all her beer and smoking blunts as long as rope. Talking like I'm growing, still got growing bones, still I have some foes and back the hoes you wish you had and wish you know. Huh?
C-5-Air is reminded of his teenage years after juvenile detention, when his brother no longer lived in the home with him. He remembers that his mother was always out working, leaving him at home. He remembers drinking all of her beer and smoking serious amounts of marijuana. He refers to the blunts as being long as ropes. This could have two meanings. He could be saying that the blunts he smoked had so much mass they could be compared to ropes, or that he had smoked so many blunts that if you laid them all out, it would be as long as a rope. The average rope is 60 to 70 meters, so let's go right down the middle with 65 meters. The average blunt is 4.5 inches. This would round out to roughly 569 blunts laid out end to end. C-5-Air could be saying that he smoked approximately 569 blunts during this time. He reminisces on being a child, yet talking as if he was a grown adult, with his line, "Talking like I'm grown, still got growing bones." He then flexes on the listeners by saying that even then, he had foes and had multiple female companions in which we not only wish we had, but also wish that we knew. The females C-5-Air was managing to attract during his teenage years were so desirable to be around that anyone would wish to even know them.
Run it up, give me that, gotta release new hit for the cheese, and that money is wired to all of my G's, and they're gonna give me respect on the street, my currency, using on pussies, robbing my weed, everything I have, all that I need, but I need more, I'm a sinner, that's greed.
Here, C-5-Air demonstrates his ability to change flow at the drop of a hat. Switching to a triplet feel, C-5-Air raps, run it up, give me that, gotta release a new hit for the cheese, and that money is wired to all of my G's, and they gonna give me some respect on the street. Respect on the street, my currency. Use it on pussies, rob them of weed. Everything I have, all that I need. But I need more. I'm a sinner. That's greed. First we get the two lines of triplets, run it up, gimme that, pleading that the listener runs their pockets and gives C-5-Air their money. He then proves his desire for heightening his rap career by saying that he's gotta release a new hit for the cheese. Cheese again being slang for money. This line could also have a separate meaning, as C-5-Air mentioned having cheese for all you rats in track 1. The double meaning reads that the game is set up in C-5-Air's favor and that he has laid out cheese in the mousetrap to catch and kill his ops. The other meaning of this could tie directly into the line at hand, gotta release a new hit for the cheese, meaning that he needs a billboard-topping hit to receive large quantities of money. Then says, and that money is wired to all of my G's, meaning that he will take the money earned from his hit song and deposit it into his gang members' accounts. He finishes this line with, and they gonna give me some respect on the street, proving that he is indeed plotting on hiring his goons to end your day. Being a known killer will give him respect on the streets, which to C-5-Air is as valuable as spendable currency, because he can use this respect to bully weak-minded individuals out of their marijuana products, so that he can ingest them and reap the benefits for himself. He acknowledges that he already has everything he needs, but he remembers that he is living in true Sin City. Sin is his instinct, so he wants more, and he embraces his greed.
Ain't no chorus in this joint, I do verses make them real. Lyrics always make you feel like I rap without a point, but you still listen. I know you fuck with what I write, cause you learn a lesson straight from my mind.
C-5-Air addresses that he did not write a chorus for this joint, which he's using as slang for song or track. While his vocals were pieced together to create the finished version of the song, C-5-Air's initial writing did not feature a chorus to be repeated. The Let Me Paint a Picture was initially written as a verse, but was repeated in post-production and turned into a chorus. That is why C-5-Air states that he only does real verses. This gives us a new view into how he goes about his writing process. He admits to writing and recording his verses, then deciding the structure afterwards. He admits that his lyrics often leave listeners feeling like he's rapping with no meaning, but then challenges this idea by claiming that people are still listening for a reason. He claims that he knows people are intrigued by his musical style because they learn lessons from his lyricism.
Stick like what? I forgot that bar. This ain't rock, but it does go hard. You from Earth, but I came from Mars, and I came from dirt, but became a star.
After repeating the same two verses from earlier in the track, he cuts off the end of one of the verses to connect to a new one. After claiming to forget the end of the other line, he states that his music does not fall under the rock genre. However, the music he makes does go hard, obviously making a subtle play on the hard rock genre. Around this point, he feels that he has gone too long in the album without reminding the listener of why they aren't the same. He tells the listener that they are from Earth, but he came from Mars. A quick Easter egg reference to his 2023 single, Mars. This line also means that he is extraterrestrial, or that he is not made from the same flesh and material as us humans, as he's from a whole different planet. He is superior to the human species. He then brags that he came from dirt, but became a star. Connecting to his other lines about planets, he's now using words like star to continue the out-of-this-world theme. He means that he came from absolutely nothing, like he wrote in track 3. His mother raised him from the dirt. He has made significant strides to go from a poor young boy living in his brother's hand-me-downs to a star, which is often used to describe somebody who has the charisma and natural skill or talent to become an icon.
That's why I shine, or diamonds never mine. Got tools in France, rich up my family branch.
He says, "That's why I shine, or diamonds, never mind." Calling back to the previous line where he calls himself a star, C-5-Air is saying, "I shine because I'm a star." Or wait, maybe I shine because of all these diamonds on me. Either way, he's flexing in traditional C-5-Air style, giving you two options, both of which he is a winner. Building off of his diamond bar, C-5-Air mentions that he has jewels from France, which is a line he uses to show the listener how fancy he is, again, drawing a clear difference between your status and class and his. Ending the stanza by saying that he is riching up his family branch, meaning that he is achieving generational wealth for the future generations of his family. Now this is where C-5-Air really kicks his boasting into third gear, as he's now separating himself from even the most successful drug dealers. He had not just been achieving decent money by selling drugs, he had achieved generational wealth in that short time selling carts, weed, and cocaine from his brother's trap house in Evansville, which is no small task. Being generous and assuming generational wealth could be as small as $30 million. This would mean C-5-Air individually sold around 1 million THC carts at $30 apiece in the city of roughly 115,000 people. These numbers are just estimates, but they're still on the low end, and they show how impressive his sales had to have been in Evansville. Now, C-5-Air doesn't directly state it himself, but one could connect the dots and assume that his high level of sales is what led to his opposition pushing him out of Evansville. He was moving millions of carts in a city that only had 115,000 people in it. C-5-Air was single-handedly taking up the entire cart market in Evansville.
She got cash for wings and ranch. I got cars stacked up in bands. I was playing in the game, you were sitting in the stands.
C-5-Air compares his amount of money to another female love interest, saying that she only has cash for wings and ranch, and he has cards stacked up in bands, meaning that this woman only has enough money to afford a basic dinner, while he has multiple cards with thousands of dollars on each one. C-5-Air may also be saying that he has so much money that he keeps all of his cards stacked together with rubber bands. He then says that he was playing in the game while you were sitting in the stands. C-5-Air was known to play football for his high school in Duggar, Indiana, which could be the origin of this bar. He clearly means something deeper than watching a football game, however. He is further separating himself from you. He has always been the type of person to be active in the game, while you have been a spectator. C-5-Air wants his listener to question whether they are truly living. His bar may also be a metaphor for listening to his music. In a way, anytime you listen to C-5-Air's music, you could think of it as him playing in the game while you are listening or spectating from the stands.
How you you come from silver but can't turn it gold? How you asking for a handle? I don't hand it till it's sold.
C-5-Air now wants to know how someone can possibly come from a lavish upbringing or silver spoon lifestyle, yet still not find success. He asks how they came from silver but couldn't turn it gold, questioning how an individual could be given all the proper resources and advantages, yet still fail to make anything out of it. He is confused by how different a spoiled mentality is from his everything is earned mentality. He subconsciously praises himself for being able to use his smarts to his advantage to elude this life of generational poverty. He continues to question the entitled mindset of others, asking how they are comfortable asking for handouts, which could mean asking for free items or money. In C-5-Air's world, nothing is given, it is earned. He does not believe in handouts, stating the only time he's handing anything out is after it has already been sold.
I don't pass it till I tote. I don't fuck with average folk. I can rip it, I won't choke. Say you want it, bitches smoke.
In classic C-5-Air fashion, he builds off the previous bar by saying that he does not hand or pass his marijuana until after he is already toked, which means that he will not pass his marijuana to you until after he has smoked some of his own product. He tells you that he does not hang out with just anybody, he only hangs out with those who are above average, meaning that he surrounds himself by those who will push him to achieve greatness. He goes back to his line about smoking, with the line, "I can rip it, I won't choke, say you want it, bitch it's smoke," which includes a clever double meaning. He says he can rip it and that he won't choke, suggesting that he can take large hits of marijuana, but has so much experience doing so that his tolerance to the smoke makes him immune to coughing or choking. If you say you want some, he will give you some smoke, meaning he will allow you to indulge in smoking with him. On the other hand, he can rip it, he won't choke could also mean that he could pull the gun out on you quickly, and that he won't choke, meaning to hesitate or chicken out. All you have to do is say you want it, and he will pull the trigger, which is what he means by "say you want it, bitch, it's smoke." This is also proved by the loud gunshot that interrupts the track, again giving that loud, violent C-5-Air energy.
Rose was cold, where rose gold, disobey my patrol, but obey my patron. I relax in my throne.
C-5-Air brings the town of Linton back into his lyrics with one of his final lines, "Rose from coal, where rose gold." Another line that shows how far he has come from the person he once was, coming from a small rural coal mining town with minimal opportunity. He has become someone who can wear expensive designer materials such as rose gold. Before closing this track with one last "Let Me Paint a Picture" chorus, C-5-Air claims to disobey his patrol, which is likely a callback to the time he spent on probation and house arrest, rhyming it with the bar about how he does in fact obey his Patron, an alcoholic beverage, closing the stanza out by telling us that after he has his Patron, he will relax in his throne, creating the idea that he is the king, which he does refer to himself as in tracks from his Trap House album like Get Laid, calling himself the King and the Chosen One. Closing the song with the "Let Me Paint a Picture" verse is an artistic choice that I do respect. This is some of C-5-Air's most honest and introspective material. He gives true insight to the memories he holds from his early childhood. So let's look back on the past 5 tracks and talk about where exactly he left us off after Static Sound. Track 1 opens with themes about the difference in class between him and the listener. This is where C-5-Air makes it clear that he believes separation comes from the difference in socioeconomic status rather than the division by one's opinions or character. Track 1 has a beat and tone switch halfway through that represents C-5-Air's mood shift. He turns against the listener, perceiving them as haters, now directing threatening bars towards whoever listens. These threats lead us into track number 2, which starts off with the gunshot as C-5-Air fully leans into his mafia boss-styled persona. He uses a series of personal pronouns like you, me, we, and they in each line. This is where we get some of the more detailed reasons as to why we cannot be the same as C-5-Air. Track 2 also addresses the Facebook allegations against C-5-Air posted by the 2 women who are name-dropped and dissed. We then move into track number 3, which has a darker sound and switches from the dark, daunting lyricism and moves into a story about the struggles that C-5-Air still faces. He details the traumatizing memories he holds and reminds us that he still feels the effects from witnessing these events. He reminisces on an early robbery in which he stole food from a convenience store, repeating that his life has never been easy, rapping bars which offer the idea that C-5-Air does not just dislike the thought of receiving advice from you, but it would actually be harmful to his well-being. C-5-Air also mentions how his father left when he was only 4 years old. For most, this would have a negative effect, But C-5-Air reminds us that he uses it to push himself harder. We escaped the depressing atmosphere of track 3, as How You Gonna Hate begins with an uplifting, slurred melody. The opening of track 4 literally sounds and feels like a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. C-5-Air uses this track to portray his haters as losers who have nothing productive to do with their time, other than to watch him win from the sideline. He begs you for answers. How are you going to hate? When you do hate, does it make you feel less lame? He genuinely wants to understand. He means that the act of hating and focusing your energy on the downfall of another individual is an act so beneath him, he needs help understanding why someone would do this in the first place. He cannot reach the conclusion without the help of someone who is low enough to do such thing, because the act is so beneath him. He skips all the small talk and tells the haters straight up, "Come say this shit to my face so I can kill you." Track number 5 is C-5-Air's deepest track so far, mixing themes of witnessing abuse during his early development and seeing things that hurt his young mind. He has memories of early substance abuse when his mother would leave for work. It is easy to assume that C-5-Air began this early life of substance abuse due to the life he endured so far. Memories that he could not erase could only be cured with alcohol and marijuana. He also shed light on his mother's life too, giving us an image of a hard-working woman covered in bruises after being abused by C-5-Air's father. Track number 5, Static Sound, is a tragically honest track. This has the most introspect and honest lyrics in C-5-Air's entire discography. In the past 5 tracks, C-5-Air has achieved a new level of lyricism, far advanced to the lyrics from his previous songs and album. C-5-Air is taking his project way more seriously, giving us real bits of his life. We finally hear literary devices such as alliteration, homophones, metaphors, similes, hyperboles, and even double entendres. It's clear that he has taken his craft more seriously. Now let's look at how track number 6, Delphi, fits into our narrative.
No sleep, I've been whipping tracks, watching ops like I'm a creep. Map their every move like this is chess. I'm a king, moving any way I please. Bless them like they sneeze. I am blessed, I'm sacred like the Delphi up in Greece.
Delphi begins with an eerie, almost suspicious piano melody. Listening closely, you can hear the creaking of piano keys while the sub-bass pulls us into his first set of lyrics. This is when he tells us that he's been getting no sleep because he's been preoccupied doing 2 things. 1, whipping tracks, which is slang for writing and creating music. The second thing he's doing is watching his ops very closely. We can assume that he's talking about his rivals who pushed him and his successes out of Evansville. C-5-Air wants to keep his eye on them very closely, clearly another piece of his street code. He plays with the allegations against him from Bristol and Veronica by comparing the way he's closely monitoring the moves of his oppositions to the way a creep would stalk somebody, which is what they tried accusing him of. He says that he is mapping their every move like this is chess. Here he means that he's not only keeping an eye on his Evansville ops, he is writing down all of their moves so he can try to figure out their plan before it is executed. This is similar to playing a game of chess, where C-5-Air is trying to get ahead of his ops by spying on them in order to beat them at this game of hypothetical chess. He doubles down on this line by saying that he himself can move in any direction like a king. He again calls himself a king, establishing that he does in fact view himself as royalty and as the ultimate authority. This line also has a double meaning, as in the game of chess, the king piece can move up, down, left, or right, 1 space in any direction. In this context, C-5-Air is saying that he has the materials necessary to go about this situation in any way that he wants. He is not worried. Whichever direction he does go, he will still win. He then tells us that he's not just blessed, but he is sacred, like the Delphi in Greece. The Delphi is a famous religious site which was believed by ancient Greeks to be the center of the world. C-5-Air is telling us that simply saying he's a blessed individual is an understatement. He isn't just blessed, he's literally sacred. Using the Delphi specifically could imply that C-5-Air is calling himself the center of the world, or that he is the center of attention.
How many songs do I gotta drop? I may drop this bitch and put her in a song. Will they memorize it? Will they rap it off the top? Keep it on the low till I pop off and make it hot.
He becomes frustrated with how much effort he is having to put into his music before it will take off, asking how many songs does he have to drop. To C-5-Air he's wondering, How many more restless nights must I spend in this garage, spilling my life out over beats before my dream will come true? He is starving for the blow-up. He tells us that he may drop his current love interest for no other reason than subject matter for his rap songs. We already know that C-5-Air places his money and status over the love for a woman, so this is not surprising at this point in the project. He is totally okay disposing this woman, because if he does so, he will have more material to rap about. Now this shows C-5-Air's mindset in all of its glory. He is after his dream, and he is willing to sacrifice even his relationships for the shot to make it big. He then asks if anyone will memorize his song lyrics, and questions whether his music will be listened to enough to ever be recited from memory. He then finishes the line by telling us that he plans to keep his album progress a secret until it's ready to be released. Keeping it on the low means to not tell many people about, or to leave something secretive. He's saying that he plans to keep his album a secret until it's finished so he can surprise his listeners with an unexpected drop.
Just felt like rapping, so I'm here. Bragging on a 2i2, I'm on some shit this year. I don't have a moral for this track, I'm just talking about the shit I fuck with, fuck it, take it back.
C-5-Air raps playfully at the beginning of this line, saying that he just felt like rapping, so he's here. Nothing more, nothing less. Plain and simple, just felt like doing it, so now I'm doing it. Maybe C-5-Air is trying to keep pushing the idea that he is the boss and that he does whatever he wants whenever he wants all the time. This is the same conclusion that I drew from his line about committing to bullshitting from track 1. He's not stating it directly, but he's making subtle comments that form the idea in the listener's mind subconsciously. He then tells us that he's bragging on the 2i2 and that he is on some shit this year. C-5-Air is now making a direct reference to the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 audio interface, which is supplying the phantom power directly to his microphone while supporting high-quality recording and playback. C-5-Air is laying his pompous bars literally over the 2i2 and microphone, then saying that he has elevated his rapping ability so much throughout the recording of this album that he is on some shit this year. This could also have a double meaning and be a reference to being under the influence of drugs while he is rapping, which we also know to be true. He tells us that he's not rapping with the central theme in this track, which actually makes my job much easier for this one and saves me a lot of time and analysis. He is just talking about the things that he enjoys, keeping things light and pressure-free.
And now we rich as hell, and you can tell. High as fuck and you can smell. Put your lighter down and look. I'm the one who got him hooked.
Back to the bragging, he reminds us that he is rich as hell. His wealth is so massive that it makes itself obvious. Clearly he means that his wealth is so visible due to his designer clothes and expensive jewelry. Now, affirming the assumption that the on some shit this year line was the double meaning, he literally tells us that he is high as fuck. He reports that he has smoked loads of marijuana, so much that we can actually smell it on him. This could be a callback to when C-5-Air told us that he would light up a full pound of marijuana upon invitation to smoke from track number 3. He tells the listener to put their lighter down and look. He's the one who's got them hooked. Another obvious callback to track number 3, in which C-5-Air tells the listener that they sound like a dope fiend, which is someone who is heavily addicted to dope. Here he continues the notion that the listener is equivalent to a crazed individual or a tweaker who is below him. Also calling back to his Evansville days, he tells us that he is the one who got them hooked. But who is them, and hooked to what? Well, we know from Static Sound that he was selling at least 7 digits worth of carts to Evansville citizens. He's asking for the listener to open their eyes and respect him for selling this amount of product. If you think about it, it is practically unheard of for a single individual like C-5-Air to sell this much on his own. He's taunting his Evansville ops again by asking them to really stop and think for a minute. Take a moment to stop plotting on him, and take a moment to respect the hustle required to sell at least 1 million grams of THC carts. C-5-Air is saying that he himself is the one responsible for all of these people being addicted to his product.
Tell the gang I need him up at 4. We gotta roll, they left that door unlocked right down the block. I see an easy lit.
Here we enter a storytelling section of Delphi, where C-5-Air is talking to us as if we are now part of his gang. And I find this interesting because this is the first time that we, the audience, have shifted from being against him to with him. He then tells us to inform the rest of the gang that he has received word that one of his ops has left their door unlocked. Now C-5-Air doesn't specify whether this is an op's home, trap house, or both. Either way, he wants the members of his crew to be ready to go at 4 a.m. Eastern Time. C-5-Air sees the perfect opportunity to take revenge on his op by having his crew hit a lick on the house. Hitting a lick is slang for committing a robbery. So C-5-Air is implying that he wants to take the valuable items, drugs, or possibly money from said house.
Listen, here's a plan. Get the homies in the van. Give them all a fucking band and watch them fill up all their hands.
He continues his story as if he's laying out the steps of his plan that he wants you to follow. C-5-Air either wants you to feel as if you are in on the plan, or he wants to give you directions in case the listener would ever like to try the same. He tells you to listen and details his plans out for you. In the background, you can hear layers of C-5-Air's voice whispering the same verse. This gives you the sense that he does not want the others to hear the directions. He knows his Evansville goons could be listening in or spying the same way that he is, so he's being extra cautious. He states that his plan is to first get all of his goons into the van. He uses the van because it is a larger automobile with traditionally more seats that can fit more people. He will then give all of his goons one band each. This is street slang for saying that he will pay them all $1,000 in US currency. He then says to watch and see how this money will motivate them to fill up all their hands, meaning that each member of C-5-Air's crew will be seen robbing the opposition's house.
Empty every room, I say don't leave them with the broom. Take his bread and cheddar too, they know I ain't talking food.
He encourages his goons to empty every room, even joking to not even leave a broom behind. C-5-Air wants his ops' house to be completely emptied, not just of valuable items, but even of the most basic everyday items, forcing a total reset on the life of his enemy. He then says to take his bread and cheddar, a callback to track number 4, dusting off the old bread and cheddar idea mentioned before. He still uses bread and cheddar as symbols for money, as he says that he knows his goons will interpret it as money instead of food.
Bucky has a camera, rip that proof right off the wall. Cut his wires, use your lighter, burn the ends off when you're done. Gather all that shit and haul it, stick it in the back. When he get off and pull up to see his house, he'll have a heart attack.
At some point in giving directions to his goons, C-5-Air notices a security camera inside of the home, now likely causing C-5-Air to realize this is either a setup or he's indeed in a trap house. He doesn't fret, he remains calm and follows protocol. He says to rip the camera off the wall, referring to the camera as proof of him and his crew committing a serious crime. After ripping it down, he says to grab scissors or a knife in order to cut the wires. After cutting all the wires, they use a lighter to burn the ends. After the camera fiasco, C-5-Air directs the gang to gather all their shit and haul it back into the van, so that way they can make a quick getaway. He cannot risk staying much longer because there's a chance that he was seen live on the camera before he was able to destroy the evidence. Before ending this section, C-5-Air humorously tells us that when his op gets home, he will be in such a state of dismay and shock to see his home completely emptied that he will actually have a heart attack. We then hear a flatline sound in the production suggesting that his op may even die from the heart attack. He then brings us back into the main chorus. But since we already analyzed this, let's move on to his next verse.
If you don't speak that grop, then I can't understand, so you might as well stop. Never been broke since 14, geeked up morphine, runaway kid, I'm lost.
He expresses disinterest in the conversation surrounding any topic other than money. He says if you don't speak that guap, a slang term for cash, then he cannot understand. If you don't speak in terms of money, then you do not speak C-5-Air's language. Therefore, he cannot understand you. Again, a clever way of discrediting anything that you might have to say to him. Save your words because he can't even understand you. You are not speaking his language. He then says that he's never been broke since 14, which is confusing because he told us that he was locked up at 13 and joined the gang inside the juvenile detention center 1 year later at the age of 14. How could C-5-Air have been making money while he was in juvie? There's two possible reasons for this. On one hand, C-5-Air could be saying that he had put things into place before leaving for juvie that are making passive income as he's locked up, or he could be referencing the gang that he joined whenever he was 14. He could be saying that while he might not have cash in hand right then at 14, he knew that if he ever did need something, his boys would have his back, and if he needs money, they got him, making it seem like he could never be broke again. C-5-Air throws in a bar about being geeked on morphine, which means that he's admitting to more drug abuse. This bar could have a double meaning, as he may not literally be talking about the opioid itself. In track 3, Struggle, C-5-Air mentions that he would smoke a pound of marijuana to block his pain out. Then, earlier in this track, C-5-Air mentions that we can smell the burnt cannabis on his shirt, implying that he did in fact smoke the pound that he mentioned. Geeked is slang for being high, so he's saying that he is high on morphine, which is the powerful and addictive opioid that blocks pain signals from doing their job. He's using the morphine as a metaphor for the pain-numbing marijuana he rapped about smoking. Geeked on morphine means he's high from marijuana so strong it shields him from the pain of his childhood trauma. He follows this up by saying, "Run away, kid, I'm lost." C-5-Air did not run away from home, so it's clear that he means something deeper by this. By smoking to hide from his pain rather than confronting it head on, he is literally running away from his problems, making him a runaway kid. He's been running from the pain and traumatic memories ever since a young boy. Do we need to go back and listen to Static Sound? He literally told us he had been smoking blunts as long as ropes and drinking ever since a young kid. He's always been running.
I don't wanna be on your time, didn't you know? Play Black Blast if you forgot.
Here we get another Easter egg, which is a callback to 2023 single, Blast. In that track, C-5-Air mentions the importance of time, saying that money is time and time is money. After this bar, we hear the faint instrumental of Blast playing in the background of the beat. Listen closely one more time.
You forgot how many flows, how much.
You can clearly hear the Blast sample in the background. Here's the Blast sample as recorded. You can tell that C-5-Air's producer just pitched this up by a few semitones and slowed it down to match the key and BPM of the beat that C-5-Air was rapping on.
Forgot how many flows, how much on the clothes, how I stay cold in the summer with my coat.
C-5-Air now wants you to take a guess at how many different flows he can achieve, asking the listener how many flows, in a way telling the listener to expect more flow changes from here on out. He compares the high number of various unique flows to the high number of US denominations he spent on his designer clothes. We know from tracks on his album Trap House that he wears expensive clothing items, especially from Prada. He's now asking the listener to take a guess at how much money he has spent on his outfit. C-5-Air then repeats the question that has been asked to him frequently. How does he stay cold in the summer with his coat? This line has a double meaning. On one end, C-5-Air is wearing and flexing a large expensive designer coat in the summer season, leading people to question how he's avoiding overheating, wondering how he stays cool while wearing that coat in the summer heat. On the other side, C-5-Air could be answering a different question. How does he stay cold in the summer, questioning how he keeps his harsh edge and bitterness towards his opposition, flexing his expensive jewelry and remaining so cool and chill, during a season as hot as the summer. He could also be using the summer as a way to express heat on the streets or tensions with his rivals. How does he remain so chill in the heat of war? He gives the credit to his coat. Now obviously he doesn't mean this coat has some sort of superpower. He's saying that he's using the coat as motivation to keep himself going and to have faith in himself and his team. How does he stay calm? He looks down at expensive textiles, in which he couldn't have even obtained without being able to thrive in life or death situations in the first place, reminding himself that he is a warrior and has nothing to worry about.
Ice in my veins, but the swag is in my soul. I can smell a fraud of money, all you smell is coke.
Here's where the genius behind the construction of C-5-Air's bars begin to expose themselves. No matter which interpretation you chose for the last set of his bars, the new line connects perfectly to both, continuing his narrative no matter how you interpreted his last bar. He's giving the answer to the question posed. How does he remain from overheating in his coat? Well, he's got ice in his veins. If you had ice in your veins, that would probably keep you from overheating. However, if you interpreted his last stanza about the summer as a metaphor for the heat in the streets, then he is still giving you an answer. He has ice in his veins, which is a phrase used to describe somebody who is cold-blooded and remains calm in high-stress situations. Urban Dictionary defines the phrase as meaning to be cold-blooded, a phrase usually used in sports to mean when you are clutch under pressure and you rise against adversity. Now these are all highly common themes used throughout all C-5-Air music, especially this project. Therefore, it is likely that this is what C-5-Air truly meant by his bar, as you cannot physically get your blood to freeze. He then tells us that the swagger he carries comes directly from his soul. It is not a front, nor is it an imitation. It comes directly from his core. He tells us that he has this special ability to sniff out a fraudulent person, meaning that he can read people to understand their true intentions before they speak or act. He can sniff it out the same way he enjoys the fragrance of dollar bills. He closes the bar by comparing himself to the audience again, telling us that we do not have this ability. We are not the same as him. In fact, all we can smell is coke. C-5-Air refers back to track number 3, where he's grouping us in as a tweaker or drug user to discredit us.
Hating on my craft, but your album is a ghost. You ain't got a bar to save your life, I call a joke.
Here C-5-Air comes at his haters again, asking how they're hating on his artistry while theirs doesn't even exist. He's saying, how are you hating on my album? Show me your album. An interesting idea that he uses to discredit people disliking his music. He does not care that people may not enjoy his sound. He's using his music as a way to express himself and put his lifestyle out there for others to enjoy. He's not trying to fit the expectations of those who have no creativity of their own. C-5-Air doesn't care about the hate towards his craft coming from non-creative and weak-minded individuals. He pushes this line further by telling his haters that not only do they not have an album or project to be judged by, but they don't even have a single bar. Even if their life depended on it, they still would not be able to formulate a creative bar. Hence why he says, you ain't got a bar to save your life, I call a joke. Also letting us know that he sees others' lives as jokes, meaning that they should not be taken seriously.
If you're still a trapper, count your content, not your pros. All my ops are locked up now, they bitches getting posed.
C-5-Air digs into his Evansville ops, warning them that they are playing a risky game by continuing to trap, telling them that they should make a list of pros and cons to determine whether it is truly worth it to continue their trap house lifestyle. He emphasizes the importance of counting the cons over the pros, showing that he likely believes the cons outweigh the pros. C-5-Air again demonstrates his genius, as pros and cons could have 3 different meanings. C-5-Air may be saying to make a list of pros and cons, meaning to think about both positive and negative benefits that may occur from their actions. He may be telling his rival gang to count their cons instead of their pros, meaning to focus on the con artists and their circles who lie to deceive them, rather than focusing on the pros they have, meaning the professional trappers. He's reminding his rival gang that they have some weak links in their chain. Pros and cons may also be used to symbolize his rival gang's wins and losses, lyrically scoreboarding his ops, telling them to focus on how many times they have lost to him rather than trying to focus on the few times they got the upper hand over him. The next line skips forward in C-5-Air's timeline. He warned his Evansville ops to step away from the trapping, but they did not listen. They continued to deal drugs until they were locked up by authorities. C-5-Air is now telling the listeners that all of those Evansville ops are currently in jail after being involved in the drug bust. He tells us that his ops' female companions are now getting poked, which is slang for sexual intercourse. C-5-Air may be saying that now that these guys are in jail, their women have left them for other men, or he is saying that he himself has stole all of their women for himself.
How they always getting caught, ain't it hard to keep it low? But they snitch cause they are soft. Now they're feeling 5 to 10 like a Dante song. I'll be even richer when they're free, you cannot prove me wrong.
He wants to know how other trappers are always getting caught. For someone like C-5-Air, who sold well over 1 million carts in a single city in less than 3 full years, seeing other people selling tiny fractions of this, yet still running into trouble with law enforcement left and right, seems so unreal to him. To C-5-Air it's simple: keep everything on the low and do not allow others to mention your name and never snitch. He says this is where his opposition goes wrong and that they are soft, resulting in them snitching for smaller sentences. This is another callback to track 3 where he calls his haters soft. He states that they are now feeling 5 to 10 like a Don T song, meaning that his ops will be feeling the wrath of a 5 to 10 year prison sentence while making a play on the Don Toliver song 5 to 10. He then says that he will be even richer when they're free, meaning released from prison, and that there is nothing we can do to prove him wrong. He's saying, wait and see. After these 5 to 10 years, when my ops get out of prison, I'll have even more money stacked up. This line also checks out, as he would also technically become richer if all things are free. C-5-Air closes the song out with one last chorus before we move into our 7th and final track of this album. In this intro, C-5-Air can be heard indulging in his substance abuse habit. He takes quite a substantial hit from what sounds like a bong. Let's replay that hit and listen to how long it really was. C-5-Air basically drags for exactly 10 seconds, which is quite impressive. It is obvious he is still masking the pain. He waited to implement this until the last track, New Rich, as the title suggests that he will have found some new success. However, the opening still shows C-5-Air struggling with his trauma. Still a runaway, running away from his issues. Let's hear how he begins rapping on this track.
New rich, born without a status, how to make one quick. All intelligence is dangerous, they barely pass the 6. Always knew my life could end, so I make commas flipping bricks. I don't care if it's immoral, in my world you sink or swim.
Off the cuff, C-5-Air begins mentioning his wealth, and goes back to the theme of his early lifestyle, being born into a family with no status, saying that he recognized this early on, and knew that he needed to build something for himself unless he wanted to end up just like them. He claims that unintelligence is dangerous and that they barely passed the 6th. Here, C-5-Air writes that he believes lack of education can disrupt a community and put individuals at risk. He mentions that the people he is referencing barely passed the 6th grade, meaning that these people were in fact not properly educated, therefore being part of the reason they were as dangerous as they were. He may have been talking about his father or his haters. He never really clarifies, but the motive still stands. He then says that he has always been aware that life is not guaranteed, especially in the area that he grew up. He's saying that the cards he was dealt and the lifestyle he lived made him believe that he was never entitled to tomorrow. Therefore, he should make every single day count. We've actually heard themes like this from C-5-Air before. In fact, his very first track ever released, Fuck With Me Freestyle, featured this same idea. In the 2022 track, C-5-Air can be quoted saying, "Everyone tells me that I'm gonna die someday, so I'm going to make every day a good day." Let's go ahead and listen to this.
So everybody tells me that I'm gonna die someday, so I'm gonna make every day a fucking good day, bitch.
So here we get C-5-Air calling back to his very first track, demonstrating how he never switched up on his morals. It has been years, yet he is still grinding, making his music, and living by the same code. He claims to have made the most out of every day by hustling for as much money as he could possibly make each day. He brings up the fact that he was dealing cocaine, aka flipping bricks, which means to get bricks of the drug directly from the distributor for a low price, then selling it for a much higher price. It could be that C-5-Air's older brother was the distributor, or maybe he was just supplying smaller amounts to his brother for him to sell too. C-5-Air grapples with the idea that selling drugs like cocaine are harmful to society with lines like, "I don't care if it's immoral. In my world, you sink or swim," saying that he does not empathize for those who harm themselves with the drugs that he used to sell. In his mind, you either eat or get eaten.
Don't hate on me, it's a game, you know. Suede shoes, bodega, you could not afford my clothes. She don't like it if it ain't expensive, like she wants me broke. I be shopping Gucci, Louis, you be shopping Windows.
C-5-Air is now asking you to redirect your hatred, implying that you should hate the player instead of the game. He blames his actions as being part of the game, meaning that he is just following the rules he knows he's got to live by. He then brags about his designer clothes, stating that he is wearing suede Bottega shoes. He then says that the listener could not afford his clothes. He then refers back to his love interest, stating that she does not like what he purchases unless it is highly expensive. C-5-Air compares this to feeling like she specifically wants him to go broke, meaning she wants him to spend all of his money on her or on himself, improving his status. He boasts about shopping at several more designer retail stores like Gucci and Louis Vuitton. He then compares his expensive and high-class shopping experience to his haters' shopping experience, which solely consists of window shopping, which is a term used to describe looking at the items that you would like to purchase but not actually purchasing anything. Here he's making the statement and distinction between you and him, that when he goes shopping, he has the funds necessary to purchase anything that he would like. However, whenever you go shopping, you can only look because you do not have the proper funds necessary to purchase any of the items.
Keep more bills on me than an ATM. When I stuff it in my pocket, my weight rising an extra 10.
C-5-Air is using wordplay. After mentioning Windows, he follows with Bill, likely referencing Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, the company behind Windows. He's also using bills as a term for cash, and he's saying that he keeps more of these bills on him than an ATM has inside of it. He then states that whenever he puts his bills inside of his pockets, his weight rises an additional 10 pounds. 10 pounds of bills is a lot of money to carry around at any given time, no matter the denomination. 10 pounds of $1 bills turns out to be about $4,536. $5 bills would turn into $22,680. $10 bills would be $45,360, $20 bills would be $90,720, $50 bills would be $226,800, and $100 bills would be $453,600. Right under $500,000 in cash on his body at any given time. C-5-Air lets us know that he does indeed have more bills on him than the ATM has, which means he's definitely not talking about the $1, $5, or $10 bills, as the average ATM in the area C-5-Air lived in during the time of recording this album would hold anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000. Anything less would not accurately represent how much cash C-5-Air keeps on his person.
Had your wifey in my bed, but she told you that we was friends. I got perfect vision, you got a crack up in your lens.
He's taunting the listener by telling him that he's had their wife in his bed, and then says that you have a crack in your lens. This means that your vision is distorted and blurred. He compares the listener's impaired vision to his perfect vision, reaching back to track 1, when he talks about how he can see the vision, however, we cannot.
I don't make it rain no more, I make it pour. They ask me about my inventory, I just say galore. 7 million cash, man, I gotta thank the Lord. I won't ever lift a finger, I'm too rich to touch a chore.
C-5-Air keeps bragging about his financial situation, saying that he no longer makes it rain, but he makes it pour, meaning that when he throws money in a strip club, it no longer looks like rain, but rather a torrential downpour, breaking down the famous phrase, make it rain, as it does not do his money storm justice. After he throws an enormous amount of money into the sky, the money will not be raining down, it will be pouring down. He mentions that any time someone asks him about the amount of money and illegal drugs he has, he cannot provide a genuine number. His stash is so massive that he stopped counting long ago. He just says galore, representing the large quantity of unnamed items. He tells us that he has $7 million cash saved up, likely from his success in Evansville. Then he admits that he feels in debt to his God for allowing him to touch such large amounts of money. This is a huge moment in the album, because as a passive listener, you may not realize what just happened. But as a true listener and lyrical dissector, you realize that things are turning around for C-5-Air. In track 2, he was making fun of religion with lines like, a couple verses got you living with your hands tied, and you can wear your Sunday best but I'll stay wearing pearls. He was going against religion then, but we are in a new timeline, and so much has changed in his life. Most things in C-5-Air's life are not the same now in track 7 as they were in track 2. He was much more cynical in track 2. He's now thankful for his situation that has changed, now believing and thanking the God for allowing him to escape the life of poverty. He mentions that he will never have to do chores again, distancing himself from the lifestyle he was used to, which was living at home in Linton with his mother, doing chores for her even in his mid-20s. Now he's too rich and successful for that. If anything, he will have a butler doing chores for him.
Like it when I spit it, I got passion, I'm committed. If you're not about it, then your casket getting fitted. New rich, tell 'em I'm too rich. Blue faces in my wallet and they all crisp.
He states that he knows his listener likes his music and voice, saying that we like when he spits or raps because we can hear the clear passion in his voice, again suggesting that his rapping voice has a seductive quality to it. He tells the listener that if they are not about the same lifestyle he lives, their casket will be getting fitted, which is a threat to kill those who do not see eye to eye with him on street code politics. He tells us that he is new rich, which is also the track title, meaning that he has found new amounts of money and new levels of success. New money within his family, amounts of money that have never been seen by the eyes of his family members, telling him that he is too rich at this point. Next, he claims that he has blue faces in his wallet and that they are all crisp. This comes directly from the line about keeping bills on him from earlier in this track. We know that C-5-Air was referring to $100 bills now, meaning that he does in fact keep just under $500,000 on him at all times.
Big time money, all the homies getting fed. I'm a big dog, Norman B, we probably pay me red.
After mentioning the large quantities of money he has, he calls his savings big time money, then says that all the dogs are getting fed, meaning that he will use his wealth to make sure all of his partners and gang members never go hungry. This does not just imply that he will buy them food, but also means that he will use his money to further support their ventures, making sure they have proper transportation, health services, housing, and financial backing. He calls himself a big dog, referring to himself as the boss or alpha male, backing this up with the clever line about Clifford the big red dog. C-5-Air states that he is such a big dog that Norman B., referring to Norman Bridwell, the author of Clifford the Big Red Dog, would paint him red. Clifford is a popular children's book that features an enormous red dog. C-5-Air is saying that he is so large and dog-like, if Norman Bridwell came into contact with him, that Norman would likely try to paint him red.
Watch my music take a G from Main Street to mainstream. This is a prediction of my future, not a daydream.
C-5-Air now invites us to watch his music take him from living off of the Main Street Road in Linton, Indiana, to being a mainstream musical artist with serious influence. He's giving us a real invitation to see him go from the dirt to the star that he claims to be. He tells us that this is a legitimate prediction of his future and not just something that he is hoping for. He firmly believes he will transition from Main Street to mainstream.
When we catch you slipping, we start clipping, then we dipping. You were sleeping, counting sheep, and I was stirring in the kitchen.
These bars lets his haters know that if they're caught lacking by C-5-Air or his partners, that they will not hesitate to begin clipping, which means shooting rounds of bullets at them, and then they will begin dipping, which means to flee the scene in hopes to not be caught for the crime. He then mentions how his haters were busy resting their bodies while he was up during the night making music, showing his willingness to work tirelessly to change his life compared to his counterparts who operate on a regular sleeping schedule. When he says that he is stirring in the kitchen, he does not mean that he was actually mixing food in the kitchen, he means that he was in the garage recording music.
When you woke, the shit I wrote was ready for a listen. I whip up a song at night so you can get your fixing on my vibe.
He says that whenever we woke up, the music that he wrote overnight was mixed and ready to be digested by his audience. He continues using words like stirring and whip to further his kitchen theme. He tells us that he cooks up one song per night so his audience can get a fixing of his vibe, suggesting that his audience desperately needs to hear new music from him constantly.
I cannot show unless we fried. Need another ounce today, I'm out, I'm fucking crashing out. Call the plug and if he humps then I'm gonna bounce up Alice, bitch. Rob his ass and tell him that it's free or he could meet a clip.
He then tells us that he cannot hang out or chill unless he is under the influence of marijuana. He states that he is in need of another ounce and needs it today. He cannot wait because he just ran out of his. We now know that C-5-Air was strictly talking about his money whenever he said that he refers to his inventory size as galore, because he had to have been low on marijuana products. Regardless, C-5-Air describes going through withdrawal symptoms, rapping that he is crashing out due to the lack of his product. In a withdrawal-induced rage, C-5-Air then says that he is going to call the plug and leave immediately in the case that the plug is in his home. He writes that his plan is to rob the plug on arrival, taking all of the product for free, using his gun as the ultimatum. He does so by rapping, "Tell him that it's free or he can meet a clip," to symbolize shooting the plug with his gun. Here we are in the last track, and C-5-Air is now admitting to using his respect on the street to rob pussies of weed, just like he mentioned he would back in track number 5. Here C-5-Air goes back into his main chorus as he prepares an entire new verse. He feels that it is important to repeat this new rich line again, flexing his newfound status on the listener.
I done touched some money you will never see. I became a person that I never thought that I would be. Didn't mean to kill him, I just meant to make his body bleed. Made him an example, now they know they do not fuck with me.
He begins flexing on the listener again, telling them that he has had the privilege to touch unbelievable, life-changing amounts of money that most people never get the fortune to see. He then tells us that this turned him into a person that he never thought that he would be. He never thought that he would truly find his way to millions. He never thought that he would really need to take anyone's life to earn his place in the streets. He describes a situation in which he wanted to prove himself, so he did something to make another individual's body bleed. Now, based on C-5-Air's history, we can safely assume that this was done by shooting a handgun. He mentions that he did not mean to kill the guy, but that he just meant to make him bleed a little bit in order to scare his oppositions. However, by the sounds of it sounds like C-5-Air accidentally murdered the man, stating that his deceased op now stands as a lesson to what will happen when you cross him.
Had to quit the perks, we all know how that shit works. Take a few for fun, then your couch is being searched. Now your life is looking worse, and you wake up to a nurse. I died to get fried, and that opened up my eyes.
Now describing his drug abuse in higher resolution, C-5-Air informs us that he's been taking Percocet to get high. He says that he's no longer taking pills because the path always ends up the same way, in death. He remembers upturning the cushions of a couch, searching for a lost pill, and waking up in a hospital due to an overdose or potentially fake product. He opens up and admits that it took him medically dying in a hospital and needing to be revived in order to stop going down the road he was going down. This could be what caused C-5-Air to leave the dealing and drug lord life behind in full. He did mention having feelings that he was suffocating himself with the traumatic memories and drug abuse, pleading that he cannot die like this and that he has too much to live for, from track 3. Now it connects and makes sense. He was referring to quitting his pill addiction. Now his eyes are opened and he sees what truly matters in life, which are the themes and wishes from his mother in that 3rd track.
Let me in the story with a positive. I don't take pills, I don't do deals, and I don't still arrive no shit because I'm new rich, born without a status, had to make one quick. I don't care if it's immoral, in my world you sink or swim.
As he approaches the end of his last track, C-5-Air feels that it is important to note how far he has come from the man that he was in the beginning of the album compared to who he ended up being by the last track. He no longer takes pills, telling us that after enduring a near-death experience due to his pill addiction, he sees the importance of staying clean. He also states that he no longer deals, meaning that he has left the street life behind to focus on bettering his life now that he's made enough money to comfortably live for the remainder of it. He also feels that at this point, it is in his best interest to no longer rob people or steal items. He feels that he no longer needs to do this because he is new rich. He no longer needs to continue his old antics from when he was living below the rest. He did the dirty work early so that he can live royally for the rest of his days. He ends this album by reminding us of how he got here in the first place, taking us back to day one, when he was born in a small town with a poor family, having no status, and having to make his money through illegal means, which he justifies by reminding the listener one last time that the reality we live in is a cruel, kill or be killed world. And that is the We Are Not the Same album by rapper C-5-Air, the 7-track album in which a man from southern Indiana is born into a small town in an abusive household, knowing he must find his way out, begins turning to the street life, which leads him to juvenile detention at the age of 13. Here he joins a gang and makes connections that form him into the kingpin drug lord persona he carried for most of his life. He raps about how the struggles and horrific memories he carries from his upbringing leave him running away from his true feelings, finding solace in drugs and gang activity. His story begins to change as he reflects on the true vision and what his main supporter, aka his mother, wants for him. He motivates himself through the album, often referring back to the 3rd track on this album, and how the idea of building a respectable life for himself is what begins turning him away from the street life. After being shunned out of Evansville, Indiana by a rival gang due to drug-dealing politics, he has no way to continue his trap life. This forces him to slow down for a while, and in the meantime, his rival gang is arrested and charged for these drugs. C-5-Air was put into the perfect situation to start fresh. He now had the money to support a more clean lifestyle, and the people who were a threat to his life were now locked up. C-5-Air continues to detail a story about how he continued to move further away from the person who he once was, meaning that his idea on socioeconomic status or class being the main divider of a society is not the only meaning of his album. By saying the words, "We are not the same," C-5-Air is also telling us how he is not the same person that he used to be. The person Cameron Vare was in the beginning of the album is not who he perceives himself as in the end. He is speaking to the worst version of himself before he found God and before he found success, telling that Cameron that they are no longer the same person. This album is a clear improvement from his other works, featuring the first true effort from C-5-Air as an artist to be taken seriously. He finally begins using vocal techniques to change the mood of his tracks, while writing bars with double meanings and scaffolding his bars like a tree that's branching off. C-5-Air no longer feels that he is just reaching for words. He has a clear vision, one he paints very clearly, especially in tracks like Static Sound and Delphi, using word painting in order to immerse us into his traumatic childhood experiences. This causes the audience to better understand C-5-Air, which, after this analysis, I really feel like I do. Unfortunately, there will likely never be another C-5-Air project, due to the seriousness of the allegations against him. C-5-Air admitted to hitting a woman directly, which erases most of his credibility entirely. Even if C-5-Air did not commit the domestic abuse, he has still made his money and is retired. He no longer has to lift a finger, ever again. Why would he bother making more music? The audio clips edited in tell a more depressing story about Cameron Vare. Throughout the album, he mentions wanting to change the path regarding his family's pattern of domestic abuse. However, the album was ironically cut early due to domestic abuse. In this journey, creating his project, separating himself from the curse that has haunted his family for generations, he actually falls victim. He could not beat this curse and is turned into his father. Only time will tell what the future looks like for C-5-Air's personal relationships. We definitely will not be getting any updates through his music. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have enjoyed the C-5-Air We Are Not the Same album analysis.
head. Mama's gonna cry cause you a fucking fool. Don't play with my time, yeah, get the scat pack on your motherfucking ass. Don't give a fuck what you gotta say. Gotta do me and my boys, yeah, I gotta do that shit all fucking day. You the fucking lame now, yeah, gonna do my shit all fucking day. Gotta get the beat up, gotta turn that time up, gotta get the breath and I gotta turn my shit up, all off the fucking dome. What you gotta say, fool?